What if I told you that most people buying a rural farmhouse in 2026 are making a $40,000 mistake? And they have absolutely no idea. They buy the land, they build the house, and then they spend months, sometimes years, arguing with utility companies, watching cost estimates balloon, and wondering why nobody warned them about this one decision that will determine whether their dream property saved them money or bleeds them dry for the next 2 decades. Off-grid or on-grid, that's the decision. And in 2026, the numbers have shifted in a way that completely changes the math. Stick with me through this video, because at the end I'm going to show you the actual 20-year cost comparison, dollar for dollar, so you can walk away knowing exactly which setup wins for your specific situation. That breakdown alone is worth saving this video. Before we dive in, if you're planning to buy rural land, build a farmhouse, or you're already mid-build trying to figure this out, hit that subscribe button right now. We cover exactly this kind of deep dive financial content every week, so you never have to make a 6-figure decision blind. Okay, let's get into it. What if I told you that most people buying a rural farmhouse in 2026 are making a $40,000 mistake? And they have absolutely no idea. They buy the land, they build the house, and then they spend months, sometimes years, arguing with utility companies, watching cost estimates balloon, and wondering why nobody warned them about this one decision that will determine whether their dream property saved them money or bleeds them dry for the next 2 decades. Off-grid or on-grid, that's the decision. And in 2026, the numbers have shifted in a way that completely changes the math. Cut to split screen, solar panels on one side, power lines on the other. Stick with me through this video, because at the end I'm going to show you the actual 20-year cost comparison, dollar for dollar, so you can walk away knowing exactly which setup wins for your specific situation. That breakdown alone is worth saving this video. Here's what we're covering today. First, what on-grid actually costs to set up in 2026. You'll be shocked. Second, the real cost of going off-grid. Solar, well, septic, all of it, no fluff. Third, the ongoing monthly cost for both over 20 years. And fourth, the verdict. Side by side, I'll tell you which one wins, when and for whom. Let's go. The on-grid farmhouse. What does it actually cost to hook up? Let's start with the option most people assume is the easy one, connecting to the grid. And look, if you're buying a suburban property with utilities already at the curb, this is genuinely simple. But if you're buying rural farmland, and most of you watching this are, that assumption will cost you. Here's what we know from 2026 data. The average cost to set up utilities on rural land, the full package, electricity, water, and sewer, runs between $9,000 and $34,500, with national average sitting around $20,400. But here's where it gets interesting. That number assumes you're relatively close to existing infrastructure. On rural farmland, you often aren't. Electricity. Extending electric service in rural areas, according to U.S. Energy Information Administration, costs between $10,000 and $30,000, depending on how far you are from the nearest grid connection. Electric companies typically charge $5 to $25 per linear foot for new electrical lines. That means if you're just a quarter mile from the nearest pole, 1,320 feet, you could be looking at anywhere from $6,600 to $33,000 just for the electric hookup. And that's before a single appliance is plugged in. Water, municipal versus. Well, for water, you've got 2 paths. If municipal water is accessible, connecting to city water runs $1,000 to $6,000. But for remote farmhouses, you're drilling a well. A residential well installation in 2026 costs $5,000 to $12,000 on average, with deeper wells in rocky terrain pushing well past $30,000. Pro tip: always get a water quality test before you drill. You can hit a great aquifer, or you can hit sulfur water that needs a $3,000 filtration system. I've seen both. Sewer versus septic. Then there's waste. Connecting to a municipal sewer system, if it's even an option, costs $1,500 to $5,700 for nearby properties. Sewer line installation at distance runs $50 to $200 per linear foot. for rural land that can easily hit $10,000 to $20,000. More likely on a rural farmhouse, you're putting in a septic system. A conventional septic tank runs $3,500 to $8,500. An aerobic system, which many rural counties now require, runs $10,000 to $20,000. So, let's do a realistic on-grid setup cost for a rural farmhouse that's a quarter mile from existing utilities. Electric hookup, 1,320 feet at $15 per foot average, $19,800. Well installation, 200-foot depth, $12,000. Septic system, aerobic, $15,000. Permits and fees, $3,000. Total up front, on-grid setup, $49,000, $800. And that's before you've paid your first electric bill, which brings us to the ongoing costs. Ongoing monthly costs on-grid. Here's the number that'll make you rethink everything. As of May 2026, the average monthly electric bill in the U.S. is $163 per month, based on an average rate of 18 cents per kilowatt hour. Rural farmhouses, bigger spaces, older appliances, HVAC running harder, often run $180 to $250 per month. Add municipal water and sewer fees, average about $70 to $100 per month combined. And your on-grid ongoing monthly utility cost runs roughly $230 to $350 per month for a typical farmhouse. Over 20 years. And remember, electricity rates have been rising about 2 to 3% per year. You're looking at a total of roughly $66,000 to $100,000 in utility bills alone, not counting the setup costs. Section 2, the On-Grid Farmhouse, the real numbers. Now, let's talk about the option that gets romanticized on Instagram, but rarely gets an honest financial breakdown: going fully off-grid. Here's the truth. Off-grid isn't for everyone, and the upfront cost is real. But for certain properties and certain buyers, the math is undeniably in its favor. Let me show you why. Solar, the big one. A fully off-grid solar system for an average-sized farmhouse in 2026, panels, battery bank, inverter, charge controller, and backup generator hookup, costs between $50,000 and $100,000 installed. I know, that number hurts. But here's the context. A grid-tied solar system with battery backup, which gives you near-complete energy independence without fully cutting the cord, runs $35,000 to $55,000 and pays for itself in 8 to 12 years. Grid-tied solar plus battery. $35,000 to $55,000 pays off in 8 to 12 years. Here's what most videos don't tell you. After the 30% federal solar tax credit, which is locked in through 2032 under the Inflation Reduction Act, that $55,000 system becomes about $38,500 out of pocket. Many states stack additional incentives on top of that. Federal solar tax credit, 30%, locked in through 2032. The panels themselves last 25 years or more. Your batteries need replacement every 5 to 10 years. Budget $10,000 to $20,000 for a replacement cycle. And here's one that almost nobody mentions: your inverter. Inverters typically need replacement around year 12 to 15. Budget an additional $2,000 to $3,000 for that. It's not catastrophic, but if it catches you off guard, it feels like it. Inverter replacement. Year 12 to 15, budget $2,000 to $3,000. That's real money, and you need to factor in, which is exactly what we're going to do. Generator backup, the silent cost. One more thing that off-grid romantics gloss over. You will need a backup generator. Non-negotiable. A string of cloudy winter days can drain your battery bank faster than you'd think. And without a backup, you're sitting in the dark. A quality propane or diesel generator runs $3,000 to $8,000 installed, and you'll spend $30 to $60 per month on fuel during heavy use periods. Factor that in. Backup generator, $3,000 to $8,000 installed plus ongoing fuel costs. Well, same story, different wallet. Good news here. If you're going off-grid, you're drilling a well, not connecting to municipal water. And while costs don't change based on whether you're on or off-grid, well, $5,000 to $30,000, same cost either way. Well installation, $5,000 to $30,000 depending on depth and location. Ongoing maintenance, maybe $100 to $300 per year. No monthly water bills, ever. That's one of the most underrated financial advantages of the rural farmhouse in general, whether you go on-grid or off. Once the well is in, your water is essentially free. Septic, also the same. Same story with septic. If you're rural, you're likely putting in a septic system regardless of, say, your grid status. That $10,000 to $20,000 cost is not unique to off-grid. It's just rural living. Tick. $10,000 to $20,000, same cost for on-grid and off-grid rural properties. This is a key insight that most comparisons miss. Well and septic costs are largely identical on both paths. The real difference is electricity. So let's build the honest off-grid 20-year cost. Animated cost breakdown. Off-grid solar system after 30% tax credit, $38,500 to $70,000. Well installation, $12,000. Septic system aerobic, $15,000. Battery replacement reserve over 20 years, $15,000. Inverter replacement at year 13 EST, $2,500. Generator purchase and installation, $5,000. Generator fuel over 20 years, EST $40 per MO, $9,600. Solar maintenance over 20 years, $5,000. Permits and system fees, $3,000. Total 20-year cost, off-grid $105, $600 $137 But remember, that includes every single energy cost for 20 years. No monthly electric bills, no rate hikes, no calling the utility company after storm. Section 3. The 20-year financial showdown. The moment of truth. All right, this is the part you came for. Both scenarios side by side over 20 years. I'm going to use realistic numbers, not best case for either side. Scenario, rural farmhouse, quarter mile from nearest utility lines. Full on-screen comparison table. Cost category on-grid, OFF grid. Electric hookup / solar system $19,800, $38,500 after tax credit. Well installation $12,000, $12,000. Septic system $15,000, $15,000. Permits and fees $3,000, $3,000. Setup subtotal $49,800, $68,500. Monthly utilities average $200 per MOX, 20 years, $48,000, $0. Electricity rate inflation at 2.5% per year, $14,000, $0. Battery replacement, year 10, $0, $15,000. Inverter replacement, year 13, $0, $2,500. Generator setup and 20-year fuel $0, $14,600. Solar maintenance $0, $5,000. 20-year total $111, $800, $105, $600. On those numbers, off-grid comes out about $6,200 a head over 20 years. Even after accounting for every hidden cost I just laid out, including the inverter, the generator, and the fuel. And that gap grows significantly if your electricity rate is above the national average, or if you're more than a quarter mile from a nearest power line. But here's what I want you to take from this. The gap is closer than the Instagram version of off-grid living would have you believe. This is not a slam dunk either way. It depends entirely on your specific situation, which brings us to the most important part of this video, where on-grid wins. If the power lines are at your property line or within a few hundred feet, your electric hookup drops to $1,000 to $5,000. That completely flips the math. On-grid wins, especially if you're in a low electricity rate state like Utah, Idaho, or Wyoming, where bills average closer to $99 to $110 per month. On-grid wins when lines are close plus local rates are low. Also, and this is something most creators don't mention, most mortgage lenders still require an active utility connection for financing. If you need a traditional mortgage, Being completely off-grid can block your loan options entirely. That's a deal breaker for a lot of buyers. Where OFF grid wins. Off-grid wins when you're more than a quarter mile from utility lines, when you're in a high electricity rate state, when you're buying somewhere so remote that extending lines isn't even feasible, and when resilience matters to you as much as savings. Off-grid wins when remote location plus high rates plus resilience is a priority. Energy Sage data shows that solar panel owners save between $37,000 and $154,000 over 25 years, depending on location and usage. In high-rate states like California, Massachusetts, or Connecticut, where electricity runs 25 cents to 28 cents per kilowatt hour, the math tilts heavily towards solar. Section 4. The hidden factors that change everything. Here are 5 factors that most cost comparison videos completely ignore. These will determine which path is right for your specific situation. Factor 1. Your state's electricity rate. This is the single biggest variable. If you're in Hawaii at 39 cents per kilowatt hour, off-grid solar pays for itself in as little as 7 years. If you're in Wyoming at 10 cents per kilowatt hour, the savings shrink dramatically. Know your rate before you decide anything. Hawaii 39 cents per kilowatt hour versus Wyoming 10 cents per kilowatt hour, a massive difference over 20 years. Factor 2. Distance to the nearest power line. Half a mile of electric line extension at $15 per foot is $39,600 before any other setup costs. At that distance, off-grid solar almost always wins on pure math, no debate. Factor 3. Net metering policy in your state. This one is critical if you're considering the grid-tied solar route. Net metering, where your utility credits you for excess power you send back to grid, is not available everywhere, and the policies vary wildly by state. Some utilities have moved the time of use rates or fixed grid access fees that eat into your savings. Before you bank on net metering, check your specific state's policy. N. Check your state's net metering policy before you commit. Your state's Public Utilities Commission website will have the current rules. Do not skip this step. Factor 4. Local zoning and permits. This will blindside you if you're not careful. Some counties require an active utility connection for an occupancy permit. Some HOAs prohibit off-grid systems entirely. And in 2026, some rural counties are actually updating their zoning to require permanent utility connections specifically to prevent unpermitted camping scenarios masquerading as farmhouses. Always call your county planning department before making any infrastructure decision. I have seen people buy land, plan a full off-grid build, and then discover the county won't permit it. That is a painful and expensive surprise. Call your county planning department before you buy or build. Factor 5. Resale value and exit strategy. Grid-tied solar with batteries consistently adds 3 to 4% of home resale value. Fully off-grid is a different story. The buyer pool is smaller. Some love it. Many are intimidated by the maintenance responsibility of a standalone solar and battery system. If you ever plan to sell, your setup choice today affects your liquidity tomorrow. Plan your exit strategy before you commit. Section 5. The smart middle path. This is the insider tip moment. Here is the move that the sharpest rural property owners are making in 2026. It is not fully on-grid. It is not fully off-grid. It is grid-tied solar with battery backup. The smart middle path. Grid-tied solar with battery backup. You stay connected to the grid, which keeps your mortgage lender happy, your resale value strong, and your permits clean. You install enough solar and battery storage to cover 80 to 100% of your daily needs, and the grid becomes your backstop through net metering, where your state's policy allows it. Any excess power you generate goes back to the grid and gets credited to your account. Always verify net metering policy in your state. Cost in 2026, $35,000 to $55,000 installed, dropping to $24,500 to $38,500 after the 30% federal tax credit. Payback period, 8 to 12 years. After that, you are running on essentially free electricity for another decade plus. And unlike the full off-grid setup, you have the grid behind you on cloudy weeks in January. After tax credit, $24,500 to $38,500 payoff. 8 to 12 years. It solves the financing problem. It solves the resale problem. It solves the reliability problem. And in most scenarios, it still delivers dramatic long-term savings. That is why this is the option we see winning the most in 2026. Conclusion and final verdict. Let's wrap this up. Here's the verdict, clean and simple. If utilities are at your property line, stay on grid. Connect and move on. If you are a quarter mile or more from lines, run the numbers. Off-grid or grid-tied solar likely wins. If you are in a high-rate state, go solar. The math is decisive. If you need traditional financing, grid-tied solar with batteries is your answer. If you want true resilience and you are remote, full off-grid may be worth the premium. Just going with eyes open on the maintenance. The bottom line is this. In 2026, the question is no longer can I afford to go solar or off-grid. For many rural farmhouse owners, the real question is whether you can afford not to. The grid is aging. Rates are rising at 2 to 3% every single year. And the cost of solar has never been lower. The people who run these numbers before they build are the ones who come out ahead financially, not just in year one, but over the full 20-year life of that property. Do not let anyone rush you into a hookup decision before you've done this analysis for your specific county, your specific distance from the grid, and your specific state's electricity rate. Those 3 numbers will tell you everything. If this video helped you think through your farmhouse decision differently, hit the like button. It tells me you want more content like this, and it helps this reach other people who are about to make a major decision without doing the math first. Drop your state and your situation in the comments. Are you on-grid, off-grid, or still deciding? I read every comment, and I will give you my honest take. And if you want a free utility research checklist to run these numbers for your specific county, your distance to the grid, your local rate, your zoning rules, I've put that together and it's linked in the description. Use it before you sign anything. Subscribe if you haven't yet. We do this every week, and it might just save you $40,000. See you in the next one.